Hi, welcome to our next normal show today with our special guest, Paul. And I'm so happy to have him on board. I'm so happy to talk about the future not stationary, sorry, that's a German acronym, of physical bricks and mortar retail, about this digital transformation going on, and there's nobody better to talk to than Paul. Paul, I hand it over. Please introduce yourself.
All right. Thanks, Joseph. Thanks for having me. My name is Paul Meiser. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of a company called Icreon. We focus kind of on digital transformation services, and one of the biggest areas of transformation right now, especially with what we've seen over the last couple of weeks or last year or so, is transformation of retail and commerce. So really happy to be here, Joseph. I'm excited to get into the conversation.
Great. So let's jump in. We said what we experienced in the past is 30 minutes happen in no time, and we have an open discussion. So everybody who's watching, behind me are slides out of the white paper, which is in the LinkedIn comment side. Please also, you'll find the link to the newsletter of Neil Redding, looking into the future. Neil is the futurist who heavily worked on this white paper, and subscribe to it. It's really amazing. And today we'll take out some parts of that study, and let's jump in. I don't want to talk about coronavirus. I mean, in the US, everybody's vaccinated now, so it's only Germany where nobody's vaccinated. And what about the first part was explosion of the technology. I really liked that part. We've seen so many things happening there. Can you give some parts just to put explosion of technology out there?
Yeah, no, I think even pre-COVID, there was a tremendous amount of trends happening in the technology space, whether it was artificial intelligence or machine learning, trying to make processes a little bit more efficient or make decisions in the retail space a little bit more personal, to kind of immersive technologies where you see like the IKEAs of the world being able to put their products within a physical space to really aid in shopping. So I think there's just been all of these things of technology coming to life over the last 10 years. And we've gotten to a point in the beginning of 2020 where these were starting to merge to create different abilities and different opportunities for different use cases and customer journeys. And I think what we saw with the word we're not supposed to say with COVID is that a lot of these technologies started to accelerate and really bring some of these technologies to the masses just out of necessity. And with this amount of continuous adoption over the last 12 to 18 months, is that we're getting to the adoption phase where it's at a mass level to really creating again these opportunities for use cases. So I think just looking at the conversion of data, looking at the conversion of in-store experience or technologies, looking at the permeation and adoption of these technologies is creating a very exciting time, kind of moving forward, kind of post-COVID.
And especially some people, it was not a free choice. Like you said, a lot of technology was there, a lot of solutions were there, but actually the need to really put them in place and to really utilize them was not there. And then it came pretty fast, because you do no business, or can you at least do some business? And I think that accelerated. And I really liked that chart also with mobile phone usage. And that's probably one of the biggest explosion we've seen, is going into apps, going into digital. There was nearly no physical retailer or bricks and mortar retailer who didn't go that road.
Right. Yeah. And I think mobile is kind of the connective tissue to everything moving forward. It's everything that is us as individuals. Our data is stored there. Our interaction point usually starts with the mobile device. And kind of how that's kind of unfolding in some of these new technologies is even looking in New York. For years we've been talking about QR codes being, the connective tissue to physical retail. But we're in a place now where we've have gone to restaurants and bars, and we're forced to use QR codes to look at menus. So that adoption rate is there, the awareness of that is there. So just every looking at the explosion of mobile in the U.S. and abroad, especially in China, I think is a huge opportunity to one, use as kind of a conduit for the customer as an individual. But two, as an interaction point for both the digital, the physical, and kind of that collective immersive world.
And I think I liked about which we discussed before was talking about the Hema supermarkets in China. I mean, in China, it's not a mobile first; it's a mobile only world in that sense, because everybody's born with one or two smartphones already in their hands. But that was one of the models where we saw, that's special, Hema, very digital. You have all this personal pickers in there. You have all kinds of different journeys. And you told me you don't need to go to China. That's happening in Whole Foods in New York already.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I've, I guess, changed in my personal life is ordering through Whole Foods on the Amazon app. And then, everything's there, and then it gets delivered at a specific time. And pretty high quality level of product selection, and also high quality accuracy in the product being delivered. And what's crazy is kind of going back into the Whole Foods store now. It's I think what we were saying earlier is that there's just a handful of actual true shoppers. The rest of the folks that are in there doing the shopping are these task rabbits or these pickers that are actually fulfilling the orders that are coming from the digital world. So the evolution and the use case of the physical environment isn't just for shoppers anymore. It's for fulfillment centers and distribution centers as well. So I think there's a lot of nuance and connectivity that has to happen on the back end to make sure that all those use cases can be fulfilled at some level.
Yeah, but this was for me an essential slide to pinpoint what is changing, because what you said, it's not what I can have or what is there, but I want exactly. I know what I want. I want to have it now, and I can get it. That's a new experience. You're not just satisfied with saying, okay, what's the closing hours of the store? Is my stuff on stock or not? Oh shit, I was there, but it was not on the shelf. Nobody there replenished it. But this is something I wanted, and it has to be delivered in that sense. So that's one of the fundamental changes. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's great about the experience economy, and it's a book that I read in business school in I think 2003 or something like that. But it was written in 1999, and their premise was that customer expectations are continuously evolving from products and services, commodities, products and services. Now we're getting into experiences, and what they've done, the authors, Joseph Pine, was they've kind of evolved that into getting into membership and what does that look like as it goes. But I think to your point, especially now that we have these the ability to get to have an impulse, make a decision, get a purchase, and get the immediate return. Our expectations, not just from a retail standpoint, but in business in the second and third level, is growing so tremendously fast that the expectations are becoming exponential. And to your point, the frustration and the defection that happens if that transaction doesn't occur as quickly as we expect, then that's a negative view on brand. That's a negative view on that journey. And so I think to your point, whenever I think of any strategy that we're coming together, it always starts with what is the expectation now, and where's that expectation curve ultimately going?
Yeah, and I like that chart that you had here. I mean, this holistic brand experience, to see this person actually with the phone. I mean, that's what everybody has in their hands nowadays. I mean, we're not watching yet commerce on our smartwatches. Yes, we're ordering on our Echo or our Amazon device at home, but actually the screen time increased so tremendously during COVID, and it will probably stay like that. I mean, we're not only watching Netflix, we're also buying stuff and looking at stuff on our screens. And I really liked that picture.
Yeah. And kudos to my co-author on this white paper, Neil. I mean, we really started to put together, okay, what are all these trends mean? We've got these challenges, we've got these new technologies evolving, we've got purpose coming front and center. So what is our point of view on the world for the future of retail? And ultimately, this is it. It's kind of really creating an ecosystem, a holistic ecosystem for the brand that is really owned by the power is transitioned from the brand to the consumer. So ultimately, the consumer owns that ecosystem at this point, using the device as kind of that central point. And what we're trying to communicate with this is, it's not necessarily how do I take my phone into a physical environment and how does that change the physical environment, or how do I take my phone and shop on the go? But ultimately, it's how does the context that I am as a consumer, the intent that I'm trying to solve for, come to life in whatever experience or whatever environment that individual finds themselves. So it doesn't necessarily have to be how do I connect at a never-ending shelf in a physical location, or a physical store, but ultimately it's at this non-moment of truth. What is my intent? What is my context? And ultimately, how am I going to get what I want right now? And depending on where that person finds themselves, that's how that transaction can come to life.
And we have a very, very interesting question here from Nico Reimer, and Nico is German, so he is doing the same mistake as myself. So there's no such word as stationary retail. It's physical retail or bricks and mortar retail. I had to learn that the very hard way. But and coming to that point, no, I think. And this is what is very clear in the study. Actually, it's not lost. I mean, it's not lost to have physical retail and bricks and mortar retail. Just the purpose, and there are some great examples here to say what is the purpose of having a physical store in order to give this more holistic brand experience. And I mean, you have some of click and collect, self-checkout. That's all solutions, I mean, that we also at Pyramid are implementing on a daily basis, which are growing. And we see that delivers a lot of value to the customer. And maybe, Paul, also give your opinion to that.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And thanks for the question, Nico. I think it's absolutely right, is that is the value of the physical store, is the fact that you can have immediate trial, you can access comparison items for what you're looking for. So I think the challenge is where does that physical trial fit within that holistic customer journey and that holistic experience. So I think what we were talking before the show started is what's the difference between Nike building an individual relationship with a customer versus what the relationship Foot Locker is building. And I think the relationship that a customer builds with Nike is, if you ask Nike a question, they're going to give you Nike as an answer. But if you go to Foot Locker and ask a question of, I'm looking to run a 5K in the next 6 months. I haven't run in a while. What's the best product for me? Then Foot Locker's role in that physical space or even in that digital space is to offer up unbiased opinion on the best possible product for that specific use case. So I think physical is a huge opportunity. One from a kind of a relationship building aspect, from a trial aspect, and then also from more of those kind of tertiary brand elements of what the atmosphere is of that brand. I think, being in New York here, I say all the time, I really miss being in restaurants because of the atmosphere. It's not just about the food, it's about everything that comes along with it. And I think, there's a huge opportunity for that in this brick and mortar, or I'll say it, the stationary retail, in terms of bringing that brand to life and building that brand cachet and that experience.
Yeah, and also Neil chimed in on that, and actually what he wrote is more or less what we will have on the next slide, because it's understanding what you are as a brand and what exactly you want to offer, what kind of service, what journey am I on? Am I on the efficient journey where I need like very quick handoff? I just want to come in, get my stuff, or do I want, like you said, the Foot Locker example, I just want to have the best shoe. I don't care about brand. I have the goal to run a marathon and I don't want to hurt my feet, or I want to run up a Mount Everest. What do I need? Yeah. So it's not a brand, it's more of an action, action part. Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually the one which really puts that all in one part. And I really like that, to have this seamless connection of diverse touch points and into a service ecosystem. I mean, that was for me, when I read that, I was just blown away, because that's exactly what we let's say our products are very physical oriented, because they're touch and feel, they're in stores, but again, they need to fulfill a purpose. And you as a retailer need to understand what kind of purpose and what kind of customer value I want to generate. So generating store efficiency, but getting a customer a benefit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And kudos to Neil on that answer and this quote. He's definitely somebody to when he speaks, I listen. So no, I think that's absolutely right. And there's a lot to unpack in that quote in terms of how to implement and execute something like that. We did some work with Lincoln, which is the luxury arm of Ford. I don't think that you guys have those in Germany, but ultimately, our task was to develop that seamless relationship that goes beyond the car and beyond kind of turning an ignition. But what happens whenever your relationship now is to click a button for the brand, and what opportunity does that build out? And all of that, came all the way down to, how do you get the data aligned? How do you get the physical, service and maintenance of dealers aligned? What are those specific use cases? But I think ultimately, to that point, I think ultimately comes back down to that customer value. What is that expectation that customer has? What's the intent? What's their context? And ultimately, how do we bring that experience to life that not only fulfills their needs, but also fulfills the promise that we as brands are trying to create for our customers.
Yeah, that's that's one of the last slides of that, but which fits that all neatly together, and covering one point, and this is something that we discussed a little bit before, is, okay, there's a lot of investment needed. If I talk about integrated technologies, I talk about evolution of physical spaces, and I want to have a subscription model or bind people, so I need marketing investment. So that's actually a very interesting way to see who is taking this leap, who is going that way, who is understanding that kind of purpose, what they want. Is a Foot Locker going that way? Probably. I mean, we don't need to speak for Nike or Adidas. I mean, Adidas had their big meeting yesterday where they specifically said, we are very thankful for all the retailers that supported us, but actually we want to have a direct consumer relationship, and want to speak directly with our consumer and also want to sell directly. And I mean, that's, and honestly, I mean, all the sport shoes, I mean, sporting goods, dress shoes was, nobody bought dress shoes during COVID.
Right.
Everybody was buying sporting shoes. So of course they can invest. Money is certainly there. And you have, we are currently in Germany are participating a lot on the investment of grocery. So we see huge investments in grocery, big parts, but it will be interesting how are other industry parts, like let's say fashion retail, how will they involve? How will they take that challenge and put all the things in place?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think the key word on that is kind of the evolution of physical spaces, because I think that as expectations evolve, as technology adoption evolves, as we look to see if direct-to-consumer model is a strong model versus a distribution network, and I look to you know, a couple trends that we've talked about. Whole Foods, you know, we see that as a physical environment that is serving multiple use cases in terms of me as a shopper physically, me as a shopper digitally, as a fulfillment center for digital shoppers. So I think that's in what we've seen with Amazon. And for those of you who don't know, Amazon actually owns Whole Foods. But what we've seen with Amazon over the last 15 years is they're always testing and iterating and evolving what their strategies are. Even looking at Prime, what it was 15 years ago was a two-day delivery, and now it's ultimately, you know, the operating system for membership within the Amazon brand. But I think, you know, looking at the evolution of physical retail, I think starts with ultimately testing to see what those use cases look like, especially coming out of this COVID world, where ultimately we're at a clean slate, where we can start to build those different types of use cases out, and figure out what works, what doesn't work, and take an iterative approach that allows that brand to come to life, that new value gets created over time. And what we like to say at Icreon is everything that we build, for, whether it's a strategy or implementation plan or even executing that implementation, is it always starts with an agile methodology, getting things in market, testing them, learning from them, and evolving. But the way that they're prioritized is to deliver immediate growth back into the organization. So hopefully, to your point, is it sounds like a massive investment to bring all of these things along, and not everybody has the pocketbooks of an Adidas, but the way that you prioritize those bets hopefully should bring incremental revenue back into the organization to reinvest back into that overarching transformation. But I think the evolution of physical spaces, I mean, if you ask 100 people in retail to figure out what physical is going to turn into, I think you'll get 100 different answers. But I think, you know, everybody's trying to figure out how to best integrate the digital with the physical, and I think that there's some kind of trends that we're seeing out there that are kind of pointing towards what that future looks like. But it will be something. I don't think it'll go away for sure.
Yeah, we had one more question from Nico, but Neil already answered to that. But maybe we just should show it in, because I have a nice example for that. When the biggest challenge on the customer journey of all channels, and maybe also show the answer of Neil on that part, and that's, I really like that. My example for that, and we mentioned Adidas a couple of times, and we are very fortunate to know Adidas quite well, but there are more examples. I mean, Nike, there's Lululemon, which you had in your study. So the basic part is, whenever you put in technology in your store and you want to give additional service, like Neil wrote, actually you need to get the basics right. So if you don't know your stock, if you don't know if the red t-shirt is available, or if the t-shirt in extra large is on stock, and your data is not correct, you can have a fantastic smart fitting room, you can have an endless aisle solution, you can have very helpful people running through the store and delivering in a very short service level time. But if your base data is not correct, the customer will use your service once and he will say, okay, I was here, I tried your new gadgets, it's just a gadget, it doesn't provide me any value. So you first, and this is the one of the first investments, is getting your data right and getting your basics done. And in my opinion, that's the biggest challenge when I look and when we put in the headline large physical retail. When I look to the US with those large ones, which in Europe we don't even have in that sense. If I look at we had Foot Locker, but if I look at Dickies Sporting Goods, all this large space physical retailers, where they have to cope with online buy, offline return. They have to have a huge inventory level. How will they manage that? How will they do that transition? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge is what to prioritize first. But to your point, I think it has to be the basics. We have kind of an XY axis model that we put together in terms of what is the digital maturity that your customers are expecting, and what is the sophistication level that you as a brand have to rise above and hit. And ultimately, it's kind of a stepping stone model to say, all right, if you want to get to stage one, you need to get your inventory on RFID. You need to connect your digital carts with your physical carts, and ultimately just kind of put those pipes in place to what Neil was saying, is looking at getting the IT infrastructure correct. And then as you kind of build on top of that, and you're kind of creating those incremental gains, what other data points, technologies, use cases can you unfold within that journey? So to your point, Joseph, I think it's really getting the basics right first, and then that opens up the opportunity to really kind of take it to that next level, because you can't jump to stage 4 without doing the work in stage 1, or else you're creating a broken customer experience, or you just won't have the data to bring that to life.
And this gives me, so we have one last comment coming in, because I think on that side, maybe put in, is it a comment? Yeah, it didn't work. So I think what Nico maybe put in, the comment from Nico, the last comment, because I like that. I mean, legacy, we're talking about legacy systems, and it's always bad if you have a, let's say, a very old house, you can paint it new, but if the wall is bad, the paint will come up.
Yeah.
So it's really, like I said, start from the basics. So that's
right.
That's probably the point there.
Yeah.
And now taking that over, because the part coming in, it's not a step, it's a loop. So I think that's the part. If you take about digital transformation, and it's not even one loop, it's an infinitive loop. And I'm very happy to have here a premiere. So, Paul, please give your book recommendation.
Yeah.
The Easter presents, please.
Yeah.
Still time.
So
What are your Easter presents?
Yeah, I just published a book. It just came out called Digital Transformation: The Infinite Loop, Building Experience Brands for the Journey Economy. So to Joseph's point, it's really all about looking at that stepping stone progression for becoming experience brands in this economy where customers are on that continuous journey. We do have a huge section on that about kind of anytime, anywhere commerce, which is a start of this conversation. But it's available for pre-order at Amazon. I'll bring I'll put the link in the chat on LinkedIn. And but yeah, this was the premiere. That was the first announcement that's ever been done. So thanks, Joseph, for letting me do it on your show.
No, it's great. I like it, because in the end, those points are so important. And honestly, my feeling is, I mean, we will have we will lose some retailers on the way. So I think even out of pure economical reasons, you have old inventory on stock, which you cannot sell. You have all this labor costs that you had the rents that you pay. If economy will not lift, and let's say I'm very hopeful for the US because you're vaccinated, so economy will pick up earlier. Whereas for us, just imagine Easter shopping, everything closed. You don't go out. Nobody needs to dress nicely. We're still in our sweaters and in our sandals. So and in our sporting shoes actually. So that's a thing that could still hit or is hitting the economy in 2021, as Europe is so slow progressing with vaccination.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that just goes back to what we've been saying a couple times in this conversation is that there's going to be several different use cases that will emerge as kind of big drivers for business, and I think it's just preparing for those, plotting those out, preparing for those, and getting them implemented in a way that actually drives business. So I hope, I'm optimistic that the world gets back to normal sooner than later, but if anything that we've seen over the last 18 months is, or last 12 months, is that we need to be prepared for anything. So it's an exciting opportunity in front of us.
Yeah, and I mean, we have to put it on a. I didn't want to be the pessimistic German on that. We have to be optimistic on that side, and I think the white paper you did with Neil, the wording that you put in there has a very optimistic note on that. We see amazing changes, and shopping never has been better for a consumer, on a consumer point, but also on an efficiency point for retailers. Let's say if we take the grocery example, if we take the sporting industry examples. So it will be amazing to see what we will have and what we can experience in 2022. And yeah, we barely made it. So it's 32 minutes. So we hit our goal quite well. Yeah. We had some questions, no more questions coming in. So thanks a lot, Paul.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure. Maybe we should put you on big. Please hold up the book. The book again. We'll put it in the show notes. So Christmas, not Christmas, Easter present. Yeah. Get the Easter presents whenever you have time during Easter. This is the book. This is the book to read. And thanks a lot. And hopefully see you soon.
Yeah.
I mean, NRF was canceled this year. I mean, we had a physical show. Let's hope for 2022 that we can meet in New York and have a physical and not physical experience, in a stationary setting,
right,
in a bricks and mortar setting, no, but it will be great.
That's great. Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Joseph. I appreciate it. And thanks for everyone who participated. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for everybody. Yeah. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.